It was him. He was not mistaken. Lu Bing found it difficult to breathe at this moment. It was as though something was lodged in his windpipe, and he could not get it out no matter how he tried. He gulped repeatedly. So what if he was a prince? If he had lightning speed, he would escape without any hesitation. However, after witnessing that arrow shot, he pushed that thought out of his mind. Was he so naive to think that he would be able to escape? The skies were clear, and there was a warm, gentle breeze. Ha Luo, with one hand on his chest, could no longer maintain flight and dropped to the ground with a loud boom. Ding! Killed a target. Reward. 1.500 merit points. Lu Zhou stepped into the air as though he was on land and flew higher into the sky. He was Ji Tiandao, the great villain who defeated countless enemies in the past. Shen Langshu was kneeling on the ground as he watched Lu Zhou excitedly. Lu Zhou was his idol. Who cared about being the first on the whitelist? Xiang Lai, the prince, or the others? All of them dimmed in comparison to Lu Zhou. Hua Chongyang, Bai Yuqing, Yang Yan, and Dai King felt as though they were boosted with energy at this moment. They could barely contain their excitement as they faced their sect master's master. They bowed in unison. Greetings, old senior. Li Jingyi retracted her paper umbrella. She carried it in her arms as she bowed. Greetings, old senior. The Azure Dragon Hall's second seat. Yu Hong looked at the sky with a pained expression. He felt awkward, similar to Shen Langshu. He did not know how to put his feelings into words when he recalled his past actions. He supported himself and rose to his feet. The remaining 700 to 800 Nether sect disciples were filled with emotions as they bowed and said in unison. Greetings, old senior. Their voices were loud and friendly, filled with reverence. This old man was their sect master's master. After all, they could be regarded as the disciples of his disciple. Si Wuya spread his wings. He looked at Ha Luo's corpse with a stunned expression. After confirming that Ha Luo was truly dead, he was even more shocked. Since when was his master skilled in archery? Lu Zhou hovered in the air and surveyed his surroundings. His gaze finally fell on the other tribesmen who were currently trembling in fear. He said curtly, "Kill them." Si Wuya bowed and said, "Understood." This time, nobody dared to see Wuya. With such a powerful existence supporting him, who would dare to oppose him? The remaining hundreds of men from Ruli and the witchcraft cultivators wanted to escape through the air. However, even their chief, Ha Luo, was killed by a single arrow. They no longer had the courage to escape. Under Lu Zhou's protection, Si Wuya dove as his peacock plume spread. A pair of huge and shining golden eyes swept past the bodies and chests of the people of Ruli. Although the people of Ruli were known for defensive skills, they were instantly cut into halves by the heaven-grade weapon. The Nether sect disciples were filled with satisfaction as they watched this. Earlier, they had been overwhelmed by the group of witchcraft cultivators and men from Ruli. How could they not feel angry and annoyed? The witchcraft cultivators had no way of escaping from Si Wuya's onslaught of attacks. They were killed one after another. There were fewer and fewer other tribesmen in the area. They were now like a platter of loose sand. They had no means of resisting such an expert. Even if there was a six-leaf elite among them, they would probably still find it difficult to stand up to Si Wuya, who was in a frenzy. Si Wuya, he activated his avatar. The six-leaf golden lotus swept through the crowds with huge golden wings. The 2 rows of buildings along Liang Province City were sliced into halves. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Zhou kept an eye on his merit points on the system dashboard before he finally closed it. Although each target was only worth 10 points, he earned quite a lot of points since there were so many other tribesmen. Then, he slowly turned around and looked at Lu Bing. Lu Bing, ha, you colluded with the other tribesmen. Aren't you worried that Emperor Yongqing will have your head for this? Lu Zhou asked. Well, Lu Bing found it difficult to string words together. He was so anxious he felt like crying. At this moment, 4 of the 6 generals who stood in front turned to face Lu Zhou at the same time. Old Senior, we would like to beg for forgiveness on His Highness' behalf. The 4 of them respectfully stepped forward. Lu Zhou's eyes shifted to the 4 generals. Beg for forgiveness. Old Senior, His Highness had been at the borders for many years. Even if he had no contributions, his efforts must have meant something. A general who stood on the left said. His Highness has always worked diligently. The citizens are filled without nothing but praise for His Highness. His Highness carries the will of the Emperor. There are many things that are beyond his control. The four of them stepped forward again. Lu Bing frowned. What are they doing? Generals. The general on the far left did not turn around. With a low voice, he said, Your Highness, please forgive us for our insubordination. The four of them bowed at Lu Zhou. As soon as they bowed, they quickly leaped toward Lu Zhou. In the name of the Emperor. Whiz. 4 avatars appeared, and energies began to collide. The buzz of the resonance was extremely deafening. Master, Old Senior, the others exclaimed in shock. The shining golden avatars were formed from semi-transparent energies. The 4 avatars gathered, putting their lives on the line together. With barely a moment to spare, Lu Zhou shattered an impeccable card. A shining golden Buddha body appeared, shielding him. Boom, 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 boom. 4 deafening explosions rang in the air, as the 4 avatars collided with the golden Buddha body before shattering. The generals were sent flying back, spitting out a mouthful of blood. When Lu Bing regained his senses, he shouted, Are you out of your minds? What do you think you're doing? The 2 remaining generals stopped Lu Bing. They're men of His Majesty to begin with. Please stay your anger, Your Highness. These words immediately brought Lu Bing back to his senses. The 4 generals were the men of the Emperor. To begin with, he only trusted these 2 generals by his side. All the others whom he trusted had long died on the battlefield at the border in the distant west. These 4 men were merely obeying his father, the Emperor. That aside, the thing that shocked him most was how Lu Zhou remained unharmed even with the 4 generals' surprise attack. Lu Zhou was truly too powerful. These 4 had disregarded their lives to attack Lu Zhou. Their attacks might be even stronger than the joint attacks from Hua Chongyang, Bai Yuqing, Yang Yan, and Dai King. Even then, they could not do anything to the 100-foot golden Buddha body. It was 2FC King tough. 10 seconds passed by in a blink of an eye. Lu Zhou frowned slightly. There was a trace of indignance in his expression. If he was honest, he did not know how he should go about killing these people. His only option was to use a peak trial card. However, it would be a waste to use it in this situation. Using deadly strike cards was a waste as well. If he left it up to Hua Chongyang and the others, he would not be rewarded with merit points. This was a difficult situation for him. Everyone had no idea that the greatest villain of all time was currently thinking of the best way to earn merit points instead of defending against the attacks. Rumble. Among the rubble, a figure suddenly pushed the debris away and looked up. Xiang Lai stomped his feet on the ground. A tremor rippled out to about 100 meters away. Like a cannonball, he attacked from below. He joined his palms and raised his hands. His left index finger and right index finger were pointed up. There was a talisman held between his 2 fingers with the words, Abandon Wisdom, on it. Abandon wisdom meant one should empty one's mind of all ideas, distracting thoughts, flashy elements, and strike with all of one's strength. Xiang Lai's eyes gleamed. A trail of blood could be seen at the side of his lips. Lu Zhou looked down. He flipped his palm and pushed downward. A blue lotus appeared under his feet as a blue light shone from between his fingers. Originating from nothing and everything at the same time. Living in samsara and learning from it. Abandon wisdom. A huge palm seal shot down. The words, Abandon wisdom, shone. Impossible. Xiang Lai was almost upon Lu Zhou when his fingers were pressed down by the huge, Abandon Wisdom, palm seal. He was defenseless as tofu. Boom. The Celestial Masters sect's Abandon Wisdom palm seal struck the ground with a loud boom. The deep pit in the shape of a palm shocked the others. After Si Wuya swept through the other tribesmen, he flipped in midair and saw his master's 2 consecutive skills. The first skill was the Golden Buddha body, and the second was Abandon Wisdom. Si Wuya suddenly recalled when he had been gathering information in the past. His men had claimed they saw a 100-foot golden Buddha body at the Holy Land in Runnan. At that time, he did not believe them. After all, only the finest of high monks could cultivate the golden Buddha bodies until it was 100 feet tall. However, after witnessing this, he realized they were telling the truth. As he hovered in the air, he regarded Lu Zhou with a complicated expression on his face. He was not certain if he had made the right choice. However, since it had come to this, He could only press on even if there was a chance he was repeating his past mistakes. Shen Langshu sat limply on the ground. He stared at Lu Zhou up in the sky and began to clap. The sound of his applause was abrupt and lonely, but it pulled everyone back to their senses. The Nether sect disciples inhaled deeply. Li Jingyi took several steps backward. The others looked at the palm-shaped pit and had difficulty calming themselves down. Xiang Lai was a disciple of the Celestial Masters sect. He had established a name for himself in the cultivation world early on. He was very knowledgeable in the Celestial Masters sect's mantras and talismans. He was one of the few outstanding cultivators of his sect and a first-rate elite in the cultivation world. Abandoned wisdom was also the trump card that he was famous for. Perhaps, even at the moment of his death, he did not expect that he would be killed by his own technique. At this moment, only the palm-shaped pit could be seen. No one could see Xiang Lai, and they did not know what the situation was like in the pit. After a while, they discovered there were no signs of life coming from the pit. When Lu Zhou heard the notification of the 1.500 merit points reward, he stroked his beard and nodded. He turned around slowly and coldly regarded the 4 generals who had launched a surprise attack. The 4 generals' blood essences boiled. Their eyes were filled with shock and awe. After being repelled by the golden Buddha body, they were all slightly injured. Lu Zhou gauged the heavenly writings extraordinary in him. He had used 1/3 of it with that arrow to kill Ha Luo. The 6-leaf expert from Ruli, casting abandoned wisdom, used up another 1/3 of the power. Indeed, the might and effects of the skills launched in close range and from afar were different. Although the extraordinary power was handy, it was unfortunate that its frequency of use was limited. It'd be great if I can maintain this power for a longer period. Lu Zhou deliberated over how he should deal with the 4 generals. Should I roar and deal with them with a sound wave? Well, if he had no options left, he would have to use the deadly strike cards. Lu Zhou kept looking at the generals indifferently. The 4 generals did not even dare to move a single muscle. Mad. Everyone has gone mad. Lu Bing suddenly laughed. His eyes seemed to be wet from how hard he was laughing. After spending many years at the borders, nothing seemed as hilarious as what happened today. Everyone was baffled by Lu Bing's abrupt behavior. However, they could understand him slightly. After giving it some thought, as a prince who spent years at the borders, his effort alone was a great service. If nothing else, he had kept the other tribes at bay and endured many hardships. It would have been perfectly reasonable for his father to regard him with the highest importance. However, his father sent these 4 generals to him to control his every move. How could he not find this hilarious? His might that he gained from years at the borders had made him resistant to crying. He could only laugh. Your Highness, Lu Bing's 2 subordinates positioned themselves before him. The 4 generals glanced at Lu Bing. We had no choice, one of them said. We were ordered to do this. Even if we die, we have to try. Indeed, men who experienced the battlefield were different from ordinary cultivators. They were not easily swayed, and they would not give up until they achieved their objectives. Even Xiang Lai couldn't withstand my attack. What makes you think that you're fit to be my opponents? Lu Zhou asked tonelessly. The 4 generals' expressions turned sour as they looked at each other. At this moment, Si Wuya spread his arms. The wings on his back disappeared. The 2 parts of the peacock plume merged again and returned to his hand. He climbed higher into the sky before he said, "Do you have a death wish? If so, I can make your wish come true." The 4 generals glanced at Si Wuya. They felt their hopes slipping away even faster than before. Si Wuya was much more powerful than they had imagined. Si Wuya was only at the 6-leaf stage. How did Si Wuya defeat Xiang Lai earlier? The 4 great protectors were injured to varying degrees. It was not likely for them to engage in another battle unless they were to stake their lives on it. Si Wuya was the only one who could still fight. The 4 generals knew well that stubbornly putting up a fight would only spell their doom. Unfortunately, there was no turning back. The instant they launched the surprise attacks against Lu Zhou, they could no longer turn back. I won't accept this. They had seen Lu Zhou unleash several shocking moves consecutively with their own eyes. Just how much primal chi could this old man have left? It was clear the general had spoken with great difficulty. His voice was hoarse. and it was filled with disbelief and reluctance to admit defeat. Even if there were no hope, he would still have to try even if it cost him his life. Lu Zhou shook his head. Oh, Yong King, what did you do to make them so zealously loyal to you? The 4 generals were clearly ready to forfeit their lives for some cause. One could see how determined and stubborn they were by the way they viewed death like an old friend. Alas, it was all for naught. Whiz! A 6-leaf avatar appeared in midair and charged toward Lu Zhou. Since they were injured, they would only stand a chance if they went at Lu Zhou with all their might and disregard their lives. At this moment, Lu Bing suddenly stopped laughing. He said decisively as he pointed at the 4 generals, "I do not wish to become an enemy of the evil Sky Pavilion. Take them down." Perhaps something had changed in him for him to come to such a decision. The 2 generals were slightly taken aback. They shook their heads helplessly before replying in deep voices. Understood. They were the only trusted subordinates that Lu Bing had left. Under his command, the 2 of them shot toward the 4 generals. At the same time, Si Wuya tossed his peacock plume out. The plume spun rapidly while shooting out energy needles. The 4 generals instantly launched countless palm seals and energy blasts into the air. The attacks sailed across the skies. "This is bad. Fall back." Hua Chongyang's expression was grim. "What's wrong?" Bai Yuqing pressed his chest. "Primal Fiend Potion." When they heard the words, "Primal Fiend Potion," the expressions of the 4 great protectors changed drastically. They did not waste time and swiftly retreated with the Nether Sect disciples. Primal Qi surged and rolled above Liang Province's city. The effect of the Primal Fiend Potion was to forcibly absorb the Primal Qi of the world while exhausting one's own potential. This way, a vacuum of Primal Qi would appear, creating a Primal Qi storm. Only strong cultivators could withstand such a storm. Previously, Yi Tianxin had mistakenly thought Lu Zhou had taken such a potion to maintain his peak condition. Everyone was shocked when they saw the vials of Primal Fiend potions in the 4 generals' hands. This potion was banned in Great Yan. And yet, Emperor Yong King's subordinates, the 4 generals, clearly possessed this potion. What was the meaning of this? They had no time to ponder over this as they retreated as far as they could. The Primal Qi in the air roiled. Although the 4 great protectors were heavily wounded, it was not a problem for them to fend off the residual impact of this storm. Little Yuan'er looked at the skies in shock as well. "Master!" Shen Langshu crawled backward. Now that he had lost his cultivation base, he could only depend on this little girl. He had a pleading look in his eyes which said, "Please go and display your wondrous might." In the skies, Lu Zhou was slightly surprised to see the 4 generals drawing power from the Danshan's seas of Qi. His cultivation base was only at the peak of the Divine Court realm. He could withstand the storm, but if they were to attack, he would have no choice but to use his item cards. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, Si Wuya engaged one of the generals in a fierce battle. His peacock plume supported him from above. With a heaven-grade weapon, he had no trouble holding down an injured 6-leaf cultivator. Lu Bing's subordinates held down the other 2 generals. Where was the other one? Swoosh! Above, a person wrapped in golden energy suddenly shot up into the air before diving down and charging toward Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou raised one hand. Unnamed materialized in his hand before transforming into a shield. Energy swirled around it. Boom! An explosion of primal qi slammed against the shield. The general said coldly, "You've grown weak." He could sense the old man before him was extremely weak, like the ants on the ground. He was confident he could kill the old man with a single punch. "You have no primal qi left." Whiz! The general's avatar appeared. At the same time, a blue lotus appeared under Lu Zhou's feet again. He seemed to emit a blue light that outlined his silhouette. With a flip of his hand, the shield morphed into a sword. The black runes on Unnamed swirled as they appeared. Lu Zhou slashed Unnamed out horizontally. Bam! Ah! The avatar was cut. Lu Zhou's expression was calm. He extended an arm. His palm shone with a clear, blue radiance. The light formed a faintly discernible hand seal as he grabbed the general's neck like a northern goshawk catching a chick. The general's avatar was forcibly shattered by this wizened and big hand. Capture hand seal. The primal qi storm came to an abrupt stop at the peak of its height. Primal fiend potion. So long as the general's Danshan Sea of Qi was destroyed, no potion would be of help. All Lu Zhou had to do was to destroy the avatar. Lu Zhou's eyes seemed like they were burning blue as he looked at the general in front of him. The general's eyes were filled with fear. He discovered belatedly that the old man before him was like a demon king who had crawled out from a bottomless abyss. It seemed like his misconception that the old was weak had numbed his thoughts and judgment. Those deep and knowing eyes seemed capable of seeing through everything. Lu Zhou's hand clamped tightly around the general's neck like a gold band. This was the best move to use, the Zen sect's capture hand seal. Since his opponent had consumed the primal fiend potion, it was not advisable to have a battle of attrition. The only way was to defeat his opponent with one move. The expansive heavenly energy, Lu Zhou said slowly and clearly. I'll destroy your heavenly energy with my bare hands. He clenched his fingers that were shining brightly. Crack! The general's head lolled to the side after Lu Zhou snapped his neck. Lu Zhou let go, and the general fell on the solid ground with a loud bang. Ding! Killed a target. Reward. 1.500 merit points. The light blue energy on Lu Zhou's body vanished. He had used up all his extraordinary power. The Nether sect's 4 great protectors were filled with emotions when they witnessed this scene. They saw no signs of deterioration in Lu Zhou's cultivation base that came with the approaching great limit. Lu Zhou was just as majestic as he had always been. He was old but still vigorous. Lu Zhou placed his hands on his back as he watched the ongoing battles in his surroundings. Lu Bing's subordinates fought more valiantly. After all, they were not injured when they started the fight. Si Wuya, on the other hand, seemed to be having a progressively difficult time since he was wounded by the Wolf King avatar earlier. Lu Zhou had already used up his extraordinary power. If he wanted to help, he could only use the item cards. However, he might not have to. Bam! 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 Si Wuya reeled back. His peacock plume dropped down and formed huge wings on his back again. He flapped them. The 2 generals who consumed the primal fiend potion were as vigorous as ever. Li Jingyi, Lu Zhou said. Li Jingyi was startled into jumping. She bowed from afar and said, Old senior, do you like to watch the show? Lu Zhou stared at Li Jingyi. Li Jingyi shuddered slightly. She said, let me explain. Old senior, I only followed Xiang Lai here to keep an eye on him. If Xiang Lai had fought earlier, the 4 great protectors would have been dead by now. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and nodded. He looked at Li Jingyi from a distance and said, is this what Jiang Aijian told you to do? Li Jingyi smiled sheepishly and merely nodded. There's no need for you to do anything against characters of this level. Old senior, she raised the paper umbrella in her hand. She leaped at lightning speed into the battlefield as her paper umbrella spun. A huge umbrella-shaped energy shot down from the paper umbrella. Penglai sect, green bird. Lu Zhou discovered something immediately. The umbrella in Li Jingyi's hand was called green bird. As the umbrella spun, energy blades shot into the surroundings. Nothing escapes your eyes, old senior. Li Jingyi dropped lower. She summoned her 7-leaf avatar again. Her 7-leaf avatar that was nearly 90 foot tall worked well with her weapon. Green bird. They launched a barrage of attacks into the surroundings. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 generals were sent flying as they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Thank you for your assistance. Si Wuya rose higher. He shot numerous energy needles from the wings on his back. The needles shot toward the Danshan seas of cheese. Bam, bam, bam. The 3 generals' avatars shattered. At the same time, Green Bird multiplied into 8 umbrellas. Then, another round of attacks that seemed to blot out the skies rained down on the 3 generals. Si Wuya continued to attack as well. Ding! Killed a target. Reward. 1.500 merit points. Boom! The 3 of them crashed down on the ruins of Liang Province's city. Even with the help of the primal fiend potion, they could not defeat their mighty opponents. Everything was quiet. The brewing primal qi storm above Liang Province's city vanished without a trace as primal qi began to flow back in the air. Li Jingyi retracted her paper umbrella. She bowed slightly toward the prince and Si Wuya before walking away. Lu Zhou looked at the ruins on the ground. Everything was broken and chaotic. He shook his head. There had been 3 of them, but Si Wuya merely managed to take one out. If Li Jingyi had not joined in the battle, It would have been difficult to say who would have won. In any case, he found this outcome acceptable. Lu Bing, however, did not feel too good. In fact, he looked slightly murderous. Si Wuya retracted his peacock plume and descended to the ground. Little Yuan looked up with a smile and said, "Seventh senior brother, she's alive. Fortunately, I was here to protect her. Otherwise, she would have died." Si Wuya nodded awkwardly. "Thank you, little junior sister. She meant well, but why did it sound like she was cursing?" Si Wuya carried Lu Wenjun and shook his head slightly. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou walked forward in the sky as he stroked his beard and looked at Lu Bing. After his seemingly insane outburst, Lu Bing had calmed down. His expression was apathetic. Lu Zhou looked at Lu Bing and said, "You're not suited for the divine capital. The border is where your calling is at." Lu Bing was slightly taken aback. When he looked up, Lu Zhou was already descending to the ground. Lu Bing considered Lu Zhou's words before he shook his head and sighed. Was he after fame and reputation by staying at the borders for all these years? He had only returned to the divine capital one time, and he had nearly lost himself. He even colluded with the other tribes. He was this close to becoming an infamous character who would be cursed at for 10,000 years. He was so close to becoming a sinner who would even use his own younger sister. Before he knew it, he had turned into the kind of person he despised the most. His opponent was never Great Yan or Great Yan's citizens. The general on Lu Bing's right was frightened. He asked tentatively, "Your Highness, should we report back to the divine capital?" Report back? Why would they go back? To meet that merciless person who would use his own son? Hilarious. No. In that case, where should we go? We vow to follow your Highness to the ends of the world and beyond. The two generals kneeled in the air. "I want to go to the borders." Lu Bing did not refer to himself with the royal pronoun. "The borders. I'd like to retrace my steps," Lu Bing said gently as he nodded. He wanted to return to where the blood of his brethren was spilled and where their bones lay in eternal slumber. "If you're unwilling, you're free to go wherever you want. We vow to follow your Highness to the end of our lives." The two of them did not rise to their feet and continued kneeling. Lu Bing flew downward and said, "Write back to say that the fourth prince, Lu Bing, has died during the battle in Liang province." Meanwhile, Shen Lanshu shook his head when he saw Lu Bing leaving. Come to think of it, Lu Bing is quite the hero. Alas, the divine capital isn't suitable for him. There's hardly any freedom there. If he's not careful, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Little Yuan rolled her eyes and said, "Coming from you." Shen Lanshu felt embarrassed and offered no more of his opinions. Si Wuya did not have the mind to think about Lu Bing. He was keeping a close eye on Lu Wenjun's condition. Lu Zhou landed slowly. He stood before Si Wuya with one hand on his back. He silently extended the other hand toward Si Wuya. Si Wuya knew what Lu Zhou meant. He brought out the Si Wuya peacock plume with a gentle wave of his hand and brought it to his master's palm. Lu Zhou knew that Si Wuya was a man with many plans. This weapon was too powerful in his hands. At this moment, the members of the Nether sect ran toward him from afar. Their feet stirred up clouds of dust. In just a moment, the four great protectors showed up in their sight. Hua Chongyang, Bai Yuqing, Yang Yan, and Dai King looked slightly battered. The Nether sect disciples followed closely behind them. Afraid to breathe loudly, Shen Lanshu rose to his feet with great difficulty when he saw the four great protectors. Li Jingyi seemed as light as a feather as she landed on the ground in the distance. Little Yuan hopped over. She said with a smile, "Hello, this little girl is too biased. Why is she so gentle when the other party is a beautiful lady?" "Hello," Li Jingyi smiled. Si Wuya glanced at Li Jingyi and said, "If Wei Zhuoyan is still alive and knows that you're Jiang Aijian's source, I wonder what he would think." Li Jingyi was slightly taken aback. Based on Si Wuya's words, he clearly knew the current Wei Zhuoyan was a fake. Moreover, he knew about her friendship with Jiang Aijian. In the end, she only said, "You have a unique sense of humor, Mr. Seventh." Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, "Wei Zhuoyan is still in Liang province. Technically, His Fourth Highness had lost in the Battle of Liang Province City. The city of Mo is protected by a defensive formation to begin with. Now, It's completely unguarded. I reckon the Nether sect will conquer the 10 cities of Liang province in no time. General Wei's men have been made into mere figureheads. Hence, the divine capital sent Xiang Lai to deal with this matter personally. Li Jingyi said as she glanced at the 4 great protectors at the side. Lu Zhou glanced at everyone present before he called out, Hua Chongyang. Hua Chongyang's heart skipped a beat. He hastily bowed and replied, Old senior, where's Yu Zhenghai now? The sect master has ordered us to protect Mr. Seventh. We don't know where he is right now. Hua Chongyang answered honestly. Lu Zhou flicked his sleeve and cursed. That disloyal rascal. Quote. The 4 great protectors could be considered great individuals who followed their sect master for many years. They were in charge of hundreds of thousands of members and held high positions in the sect. Throughout their years of service, they had never seen anyone curse at their sect master in such a manner. However, they were not offended when the old senior expressed his disapproval of their master. In fact, they found it justified. Does he think he can conquer the divine capital just because he has learned a thing or two from me? Lu Zhou said with a hint of disdain. The 4 great protectors appeared to be put in a tight spot by Lu Zhou's words. They did not dare to speak. He overestimates himself. Lu Zhou waved his arm. He beckoned little Yuan'er over and said, Let's return to the evil sky pavilion. Little Yuan'er nodded. Si Wuya carried Lu Wenjun and was about to rise to his feet when the 4 great protectors fell to one knee. Mr. Seventh. Shortly after, the Nether sect disciples fell to their knees. It was a majestic sight to behold. Si Wuya said, Tell my eldest senior brother. This is my fault. If there's a chance in the future, I'll make it up to him. Hua Chongyang lowered his head and mustered up his courage before he said, Mr. Seventh, I've guaranteed your safety to the sect master. Si Wuya shook his head and said, I've decided to return to the evil sky pavilion. But, without you, Mr. Seventh, how's the Nether sect supposed to survive? Hua Chongyang seemed slightly agitated. No one could deny Si Wuya's contribution to the Nether sect and the heights it had reached. Throughout these months, Si Wuya had drafted a detailed plan by leveraging his information network and made the Nether sect into the greatest fiend sect with hundreds of thousands of disciples. It was now powerful enough to stand up against the divine capital. It could be said that Si Wuya was the 2nd greatest person in the Nether sect. Impudent, Lu Zhou said. His voice was loud and domineering, although his cultivation base was only in the divine court realm cultivation base. The sound wave and his primal chi made the others tremble in fear. The 4 great protectors were at loss over what to do. Little Yuan'er pointed at the 4 great protectors. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're so stupid. My master will take anyone he wants with him. Do you think he has to report to you? Keep this up and see if I don't smash your heads to bits. The 4 great protectors. Quote. Shen Langshu. Quote. Little Yuan'er's words were fierce and arrogant. But she had a point. At this time, Shen Langshu, naturally, knew little Yuan'er was the 9th disciple of the evil sky pavilion. Bolstered by this knowledge, he chimed in, Miss Ninth has a point. Do you think you can stop the old mister from taking anyone with him? Do you think Mr. Seventh has a say in this matter? The 4 of them could not refute Shen Langshu's words. Lu Zhou looked at them indifferently and said, If you wish to forfeit your lives, I'll grant you your wish. He raised a hand. A weak puff of primal chi swirled on his palm. Hua Chongyang shuddered in fright. He hastily rose to his feet, turned around, and left. I've made a mistake. I'll be taking my leave. The others did not put up a resistance as well. They quickly ran after Hua Chongyang. Looking battered and exhausted, clouds of dust stirred in their wakes, and they vanished from the ruins in just a blink of an eye. At this moment, Baiyan's stocky body appeared in midair. It landed slowly. Shen Langshu was startled into jumping. He backed away at once. He thought that the old senior was threatening to strike Hua Chongyang. Who knew the old senior was just summoning his mount? Baiyan landed next to Lu Zhou, and he leaped onto its back. Oh, old senior, Shen Langshu cried out immediately. It's nothing. Nothing important. Was my performance all right? Shen Langshu looked at Lu Zhou expectantly like a kid waiting to be praised. Aren't you angry that I destroyed your cultivation base? Lu Zhou asked. No, not at all. I deserve it. Besides, I have a sable magnolia. He stopped talking abruptly. He hastily added, I don't have a sable magnolia. Lu Zhou looked at Shen Lanshu and said, the heavens aren't merciful. Creation is merely a lifeless offering to it. The humbler you are, the more you will learn. You should earnestly think about the things that you should and shouldn't do. After Lu Zhou finished speaking, Bian rose into the air. Little Yuaner and Si Wuya flew behind him. Shen Lanshu remained where he stood, stunned. He remembered various incidents regarding the evil sky pavilion. Compared to the evil sky pavilion, what was he doing? After a moment of silence, he bowed in the direction where Lu Zhou had flown off. Then, he shuddered before he ran into the distance. Meanwhile, inside the Melalot graveyard, Yu Shangrong sighed and opened his palms. He circulated his primal qi and adjusted his Danshan sea of qi. After adjusting his breath and meditating, the chaotic flow of his primal qi calmed down. Yu Shangrong slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the ray of light shining into the Melalot graveyard from the ceiling in satisfaction. The feeling of being able to live another day was wonderful. It was just like when he was enjoying the sunset on the mountain the other day. After a good night's rest, the sun would still rise on the second day. It was cold on Brackish Mountain. However, for a cultivator, they could keep the cold at bay. He wanted to see if the sun was up outside. Alas, the state of his body left him with no choice other than to stay in the Melalot graveyard. Yu Shangrong raised a palm and looked at it. Everything was in order. Open. A miniature avatar materialized on his palm. The avatar had the same appearance as Yu Shangrong. It was like a small golden person without the golden lotus. Golden radiance rose upward from its feet in circles. Then, the circles dropped. Yu Shangrong was as experienced in sprouting leaves as any other cultivator. He knew how leaves were sprouted. However, he was unaware that he had stepped foot on the path to the 9-leaf stage. What he intended to do was to form the golden lotus again. After severing the golden lotus, all he had to do was to form it again. Hence, he circulated all his primal qi and condensed it into a golden radiance. He pushed it down on his avatar. The energy gathered under the avatar's feet. Based on his past experience, this amount of energy should have been enough to form a golden lotus. However, no matter how hard he tried to circulate his primal qi, he could not form a golden lotus. The rings of energy flowed down the avatar's feet and dissipated as though they were poured into the ocean. Reopen. Yu Shangrong's voice was determined and forceful. With that command, beams of golden radiance appeared. Whiz, whiz, whiz. Something resonated loudly in the air. A faint smile appeared on Yu Shangrong's face. There it was, a leaf. Yu Shangrong suddenly felt his heart race. He held his breath as he studied the golden lotus under his feet. Sprouting leaves all over again sounded simple, but it could also be the most difficult thing to achieve. It was due to his rich experience that he did not meet with obstacles like most novices did. The difficult part for him was doing all these things while he was still injured from severing his golden lotus. Moreover, this was his first time having to form a golden lotus again. Which came first, the golden lotus or the leaves? Without roots, how could there be leaves? To put it more aptly, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Whiz. His avatar shook, and the sound of resonance grew louder as well. The leaf began to take shape, and in just a while, the entire leaf had sprouted. He had successfully formed his first leaf again. In other words, his cultivation base was now in the one-leaf nascent divinity tribulation realm again. He did not have to judge the height and might of his avatar. He could sense that it was a true one-leaf avatar. His golden lotus continued shaking, and the radiant circles continued to move downward. According to his own speculation, the golden lotus should be forming any time now. Unfortunately, when he felt that his primal qi was almost depleted, he had yet to see the golden lotus. Maintaining the appearance of an avatar expended a great amount of primal qi. Moreover, he was injured. Yu Shanrong raised a palm. He extended his arm before himself and stared at the avatar. The radiant circles had disappeared, and the soul leaf spun around the avatar. There was no golden lotus. This was a novel experience for Yu Shangrong. He was an 8-leaf elite who could arrogantly look down on everyone. His name, the Sword Devil, incited fear in the listener's heart. And still, he found it hard to accept what he was seeing. An avatar without a golden lotus. He clenched his fist, and the avatar disappeared. Yu Shangrung's eyes gleamed. He closed his eyes and sat with his legs crossed before he began to absorb primal chi again. He kept this up for a day and a night. When he sensed that some of his primal chi had been replenished, and his mental state had improved, he summoned his avatar again. There was still no golden lotus under the avatar's feet. Only one leaf could be seen. Yu Shangrong amassed all his primal chi and gathered it below his avatar's feet and attempted again. He wanted to form a new golden lotus. He kept attempting in this manner. When his primal chi was about to run out, boom, his avatar dispersed. The spot where he sat suddenly caved in. Yu Shangrong fell, plunging into darkness. He could not see anything at all. A cold blast of wind blew against him, and his face turned pale from the cold. Even so, he remained calm. He quickly found his footing and stopped falling in midair. With a strike of his palm, a shining golden palm seal shot out and illuminated his surroundings. Melalot. Yu Shangrong saw a huge path of melalot below him. Whiz. He was distracted by this sight when a net-like cover suddenly sealed the opening above him. Click. Yu Shangrong frowned slightly as he flew upward. Bam! He struck the net-like cover with a palm seal. The cover did not move. He launched another palm seal. Bam! It remained unmoved. Bam! 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 After 3 more consecutive strikes, the cover still showed no signs of moving. Millennium Frost Iron. Yu Shangrong shook his head, looking slightly displeased. Longevity Sword. He gently summoned his sword that was lying on the ground above him. No way. It seemed like his ability to remotely control an object had been greatly weakened. He flew up to the cover and touched the cover. His palm shone with golden radiance. The golden radiance illuminated the cover, and he could see formation veins inscribed on it. A weakening formation vein. Yu Shangrong shook his head again. It was skillfully and brilliantly designed. The people of the nobleman country survived thanks to these items. The things that he deemed weak were too insignificant to mention. However, this cover had exceeded his expectations. Yu Shangrong sighed softly. Based on the situation, it seemed like he would need a higher cultivation base to summon the longevity sword to him. It was not something he could do at the moment. He descended slowly. He launched another shining golden palm seal to take a good look at his surroundings. This seemed to be a trap. It resembled a shelter as well. After observing it for some time, Yu Shangrong closed his eyes and sat down with his legs crossed. Since he had made up his mind to begin again, he should not bite off more than he could chew. One leaf was still a leaf. He could do without a golden lotus for now. The Evil Sky Pavilion. After a day and night's worth of flying, Lu Zhou, Si Wuya, and Little Yuan finally arrived on Golden Court Mountain's Evil Sky Pavilion. They landed in the pavilion. Who's that? Another newcomer. Learn from your past mistake. Will you? It must be Mr. First since the old senior brought him back with such fanfare. Pan Zheng said as he crossed his arms. Is Mr. First so gentle? Maybe it's Mr. Seventh. Zhou Jifeng shook his head. There's something you don't know. I heard Mr. Seventh is extremely clever. His information network is spread throughout Great Yan. If he's unwilling, nobody can get a hold of him. Pan Zheng said confidently. You've got a point. Moreover, none of the 9 Evil Sky Pavilion disciples can be judged based on their appearances. Both of them seemed to have come to an agreement. Then, they walked toward Lu Zhou and the others after exchanging a look. Greetings, Pavilion Master. Greetings, Miss Ninth. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng were already familiar with the procedure. There was no need to greet Mr. First. He was nothing but a traitor. At the very least, they could not greet him in front of the Pavilion Master. Did anything happen in the Evil Sky Pavilion these past few days? Lu Zhou asked as he stroked his beard. Pan Zheng answered honestly, in reply to your question. Pavilion Master. Nothing eventful happened in the Evil Sky Pavilion. Mr. Third oversaw day-to-day operations, and everything went smoothly. The sects of the Noble Path, on the other hand, are spreading lies about the Evil Sky Pavilion everywhere. Lies. It's the same news about Mr. Second being dead, and the withering of the plants and trees on Golden Court Mountain. They're saying, Pan Zheng stammered. You can speak freely, Lu Zhou said. They're saying your great limit is just around the corner. Pan Zheng did as he was told and revealed what he had heard. Lu Zhou nodded. That much was expected. Sometimes. He wondered how many times those on the noble path needed to be crushed before they would realize the folly of their ways. Great limit. Do I look like I'm going to die so soon? It was meaningless to ponder about such matters at the moment. Lu Zhou looked at Si Wuya, who remained silent, and Princess Yongning, who was in his arms. He said, Yuan heir, bring the princess to the south pavilion to rest. Yes, master. Little Yuan heir cupped her fists. As for you, Lu Zhou's gaze fell on Si Wuya. Repent in the cave of reflection for 7 days. Si Wuya's expression remained unchanged. He merely cupped his fists and said, Thank you, master. Although Si Wuya's attitude to Lu Zhou was respectful, Lu Zhou could sense the lack of sincerity. However, he did not say anything and returned to the eastern pavilion. He had come up with 7 days for the sentence because he wanted to replenish the heavenly writing scroll's extraordinary power during that time. Without the extraordinary power as his backup, he could not help but feel that something was missing. After Lu Zhou left, Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng respectfully bowed at Si Wuya and said in unison, Greetings, Mr. First. Si Wuya only looked at them before he made his way to the cave of reflection. The two of them hurried after him. Mr. First, shall I fetch you a coat? Mr. First, you look more handsome than I'd imagined. Si Wuya did not bother about the two bootlickers. He walked at his normal pace. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng followed behind him. They were increasingly convinced that the person before them was the evil Sky Pavilion's first disciple. He was too familiar with the environment and the routes between the eastern, western, southern, and northern pavilions. He arrived at the back of the mountain as though he had been there 1,000 times before. The moment Si Wuya arrived, he said without turning back to look at Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng. The Heavenly Sword Sect's first disciple, Zhou Jifeng, the Clarity Sect's traitor, Pan Zheng. He easily identified them. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng were taken aback. Before they could respond, Si Wuya continued to ask, How's everyone doing? Pan Zheng did not answer the question immediately. He was thinking this was indeed how the first disciple of the evil Sky Pavilion should behave. Just look at him and listen to his words. How majestic. He's a man of few words. But when he speaks, he asks about everyone's condition. Pan Zheng scratched his head and replied, Thank you for asking, Mr. First. I'm doing fine. I like this place very much. Zhou Jifeng chimed in. Thank you for asking, Mr. First. I'm fine as well. This isn't only a great place. The people here are friendly and approachable as well. Si Wuya's expression remained neutral as he turned around slowly to study them. He was not offended nor did he reprimand them for not answering his question. Instead, he said, That's good, Mr. First. It's cold inside the cave. I'll bring a mattress and a blanket for you at once. Pan Zheng said. Pan Zheng's voice had barely faded when a loud bang rang from behind. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng saw Duan Musheng, who was holding his overlord spear. At this moment, he was looking at both of them with a stern expression on his face. They could tell instantly that he was not in a good mood and began to grow anxious. Mr. First, please don't be angry. Please don't hold this against Mr. Third. Pan Zheng said. Clang. The overlord's spear struck the ground. You bastard. Pan Zheng was taken aback. He did not dare to speak. But he muttered inwardly, Mr. Third is being too blunt. Indeed, Mr. First had left the evil Sky Pavilion for some unknown reason. But it still takes a lot of courage to publicly call him out on it. Pan Zheng was about to plead on Si Wuya's behalf when Si Wuya suddenly bowed and said, Greetings, third senior brother. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng were thunderstruck. We're dead meat this time. We made another mistake. Duan Musheng lifted his overlord's spear and walked over expressionlessly. He glanced at Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng before giving both of them a kick. Ack! Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng bumped against each other. They looked at Duan Musheng with a defeated expression, too afraid to say anything. Duan Musheng said, What do you mean by asking Mr. First to not get mad? Old Seventh. Is this how you speak to me? There was nothing wrong with a senior disciple instructing a junior disciple. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng felt like crying. Si Wuye did not care about their feelings. Instead, he faced Duan Musheng and bowed again. Greetings, third senior brother. He did it much more formally than before. Duan Musheng snorted and said, "How shameless of you to return." "I'm ashamed," Si Wuye calmly replied. "All these years, you've caused trouble and unrest in the outside world. In the end, look at how obediently you had to return to the evil sky pavilion. Do you think that everyone else is beneath you just because you're clever?" Duan Musheng said, not hiding his intent to mock Si Wuye. "You're right, third senior brother," Si Wuye replied tonelessly. Swoosh. Duan Musheng raised his overlord spear and pointed it at Si Wuye. "Don't you think that I'll forgive you just because you're talking to me in this manner?" Si Wuye saw the heaven-grade weapon in Duan Musheng's hand. He did not seem overly surprised. He said with a smile, "I'm injured from the battle in Liang Province's city. You're braver and more valiant than most. Third senior brother, I'm sure you won't strike a man when he's down." Duan Musheng said, "I won't be so sure about that." Swoosh. Duan Musheng grabbed the center of the overlord spear's shaft with his right hand while the bottom of the shaft was under his armpit. He pointed it at Si Wuye and said, "Old Fourth is right. There's no need to be fair against a petty and despicable man. Master has told us that there's no such thing as absolute fairness in the world. Show me just how much you've improved. You bloody traitor." He thrust the overlord spear that glinted in the light. The spear flew out like a dragon. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Si Wuye tapped the ground with his feet and retreated. For a time, the two of them engaged each other in battle. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng hastily moved backward. They observed the battle from the side. "Brother Pan, I won't believe you ever again," Zhou Jifeng complained. "Oh, shut up." Zhou Jifeng wiped the sweat from his face and asked, "Who's more powerful, Mr. Third or Mr. Seventh?" Pan Zheng looked at the two disciples and said in a hushed tone, "I'm guessing Mr. Seventh. Think about it. He's capable of turning the cultivation upside down. All 9 provinces of Great Yan are in chaos right now. We shouldn't judge a book by its cover nor measure the volume of the sea with a pitcher. Besides, I've heard Mr. Eighth mention that nobody was able to make Mr. Seventh unleash his full strength before. Is he that powerful? Just watch." The two of them ended the conversation. Duan Musheng leaped into the skies. Then, with both hands on the spear's shaft, he dove. Thousands of spear shadows appeared in just an instant. Imperfect divine intervention. Countless spear shadows stabbed at Si Wuye without rest. Si Wuye unleashed several shots of energy. Bam, bam, bam. To Si Wuye's surprise, the spear shadows easily destroyed his energy blasts. The tip was now upon his face, and he quickly raised his hands to defend himself. Bam! Si Wuye flipped in the air. He staggered backward. His arms felt numb from the vibration, and his face was pale. Duan Musheng retracted his overlord spear. He did not continue his assault. Instead, he said, "Is that all you've got?" Si Wuye cupped his fists and said, "I'm impressed by your profound cultivation base." Third senior brother, Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng were speechless. Zhou Jifeng rolled his eyes and looked at Pan Zheng skeptically. Based on his expression, it was clear that he would rather wash his hair while standing upside down than believe Pan Zheng's words ever again. Duan Musheng raised his overlord spear. He spun it in his hand before resting it on his shoulder. He said, "Go into the cave. Are you waiting for me to invite you in?" Si Wuye nodded. He did not resist. Without saying another word, he entered the cave of reflection. The back of the mountain was quiet again. "Your spear skills finally improved, Mr. Third," Pan Zheng said, giving a thumbs up. "Finally improved." Duan Musheng's expression looked menacing as he said, "Do you mean to say that I made no improvements before this?" Quote. "Come, both of you. Forget your meals for a few days. Train with me." Duan Musheng did not pursue the matter. Instead, he walked toward them in a friendly manner and placed the overlord spear in their hands. Then, he grabbed the backs of their collars and dragged them toward the training place halfway up the mountain. Pan Zheng and Zhou Jifeng's expressions were pitiful as they let themselves be taken away. At dusk, Lu Zhou opened his eyes. After meditating on the heavenly writing for half a day, His mental state was slightly rebuilt. However, there was still a long way to fully recovering it. He called up the system dashboard. Name, Lu Zhou. Identity, Great Yan Human. Cultivation Base, Divine Court Realm. Dao Transforming Stage. Merit Points, 42.800. Avatar, 10 Worlds. Remaining Life, 9.763 days. Item, Deadly Strike Card X1. Critical Block Card X62, Passive. Cage Bind Card X4. GT Andao's Peak Trial Card X1. Wizard, Resting. Buy-in. Critical Heal Card X2. Improved Binding Cage Card X2. Improved Critical Heal Card X2. Thunderblast X1. Reversal Card X33. Weapon, Unnamed. Life Cutter. Jade Horsetail Whisk. Refinement needed. Peacock Plume. Refinement needed. Cultivation Method. 3 Scrolls of Heavenly Writing. All in all, he did gain from his time in Liang Province. Si Wuya contributed a lot by killing nearly 2,000 other tribesmen. Lu Zhou muttered under his breath. One more step. I'm one step away from entering the nascent divinity tribulation realm. Only when he was in the nascent divinity tribulation realm would he be considered as truly stepping out into the cultivation world. Lu Zhou waved his hand casually. The dashboard vanished. When he remembered that he had matters to attend to, he pushed the thought of spending his merit points to the back of his mind. He had sensed someone cleaning outside his room, so he said, "Summon Si Wuya here." Understood. Shortly after, Si Wuya left the back of the mountain with a derived Moon Palace's female disciple and made his way to the Eastern Pavilion. During the journey, he looked at the female cultivator and asked, "Where's your palace master now?" The female cultivator hastily bowed and said, "Mr. Seventh, there is no palace master or the derived Moon Palace in the Evil Sky Pavilion. Miss Sixth has been banished by the pavilion master a long time ago and hasn't been heard of since. The last we heard of her was when she killed the 5 mice of Upper Prime City and sent the Zen tunic here. After that, we've not heard from her. Haven't been heard from her since." Si Wuya stopped in his tracks. As he recalled the information he received before this, he discovered he had arrived outside the Eastern Pavilion. He wanted to ask about the Evil Sky Pavilion's recent situation, but since he was already outside the Eastern Pavilion, he could only push that question aside for now. The female cultivator bowed and said, "I'll take my leave." Si Wuya surveyed the surroundings of the Eastern Pavilion. It had been a long time, but nothing seemed to have changed. It seemed that he was the only one who had changed. He had grown up, no longer the little boy he was before. His master was also no longer the master he knew from before. Si Wuya entered before he came to half outside Lu Zhou's room. He bowed. "Greetings, master." There was no reply from the room. Swoosh. The door was opened by a blast of energy. Si Wuya understood what this meant. He entered the room. Once inside, he found himself in a spacious and comfortable hall with a scenic view of the mountains. There was a small desk in the center of the hall. An incense burner with no incense at the moment was placed on the table. He saw the 4 treasures of the study, a bookshelf, and a calligraphy work on the wall. Out of the sea, the bright moon rises, though miles apart. The same moment is shared. For some unknown reason, Si Wuya felt his heart race when he read this poem. Clever as he was, he, naturally, knew what it meant. He was shocked but did not dare to say anything. He gulped as he looked at Lu Zhou, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. After a moment of silence, he called out, "Master." Lu Zhou opened his eyes slowly. His gaze fell on Si Wuya as he said, "Aren't you ashamed to call me master?" Si Wuya felt apprehensive. He was starting to feel nervous. After giving it some thought, he chose to kneel obediently. Lu Zhou asked with an apathetic expression, "Tell me, why did you leave the Evil Sky Pavilion?" Si Wuya replied solemnly, "I can only realize my true potential outside of the Evil Sky Pavilion." "With that ingenuity of yours?" Lu Zhou asked. Si Wuya said, "I think that I can." "You think?" Si Wuya said, "Now that the 9 provinces of Great Yan are in chaos, all I need is more time to make them fall completely. The imperial family will surely be in disarray. Even the 10 terminal formation will be of no use to the divine capital when the time comes. With the 9 provinces surrounding it, the divine capital will be isolated and without help. Its defeat is only a matter of time. 1 year, 1 more year is all I need. Whoosh! Lu Zhou suddenly launched a palm seal. Smack! It struck Si Wuya across the face. Ding! Punished Si Wuya. Reward: 200 merit points. This was a rascal who should have been properly educated. Si Wuya was cut short by this sudden slap. Lu Zhou snorted and said, "You overestimate yourself. When I made an acquaintance out of Emperor Yong Shou, you were still in your mother's womb. Do you think the divine capital is all Yong King has?" Si Wuya looked up to meet Lu Zhou's gaze and said, "With eldest senior brother, I know all about the weaknesses of the 8-leaf stage. Whether it's the 8 chiefs or the imperial guards, they can't leave the divine capital. So you think you understand the imperial family?" Lu Zhou asked. Si Wuya's voice was softer now as he said, "After I left the evil sky pavilion, I entered the palace, and with a stroke of luck, I became a grand tutor." Lu Zhou said mercilessly, "That's not all. You left such a good impression on Yong Ning so that you use her to obtain information in the palace." "I did not use her," Si Wuya said vehemently. Lu Zhou regarded Si Wuya silently. "Didn't you? Surely, you know the answer to that." Such was the nature of man. The more one spoke, the harder the other party would deny and refute it. It was better to disengage and not debate the matter. Si Wuya fell silent. After some time, Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, "You knew what happened with Yu Shangrong. I won't recount it to you again." When Si Wuya heard the name, his heart skipped a beat. "Where's my memory crystal now?" Lu Zhou continued to ask. Si Wuya had expected this question. With wide eyes, he hastily shook his head and said, "I don't know. Sir Old Second lied to me." "Ah, you won't tell me?" Lu Zhou rose to his feet. He placed his hands on his back as he stared down at Si Wuya. Lu Zhou's aura pressed down on Si Wuya, making it difficult for him to breathe. He said, "Master, believe me, you were the one who sealed the crystal. You didn't want anyone to find out about it. You don't even want to know about it yourself. Why would you look for it again when you went through so much trouble to seal it?" "I've changed my mind," Lu Zhou said. "That's because you don't have your memories. If you find it and restore your memories, you'll definitely regret it." Moreover, Si Wuya paused briefly before he gritted his teeth and soldiered on. "Moreover, you should remain on the mountain and spend the next few years peacefully. I promise to be filial to you. After that," he kowtowed, "you're saying that my judgments are incorrect, and seeing that I'm going to die soon anyway, I should let all of you do whatever you want?" Lu Zhou asked. Si Wuya was taken aback. However, he quickly replied, "If that's the way you wish to interpret my words, Master, then, so be it." Impudent. Lu Zhou waved his sleeve. An energy seal struck Si Wuya, and he reeled back before crashing through the door. Boom! Si Wuya landed in the Eastern Pavilion's hall. Lu Zhou waved his sleeve again. Another palm seal sailed in the air. Bam! Si Wuya fell down the stairs. Lu Zhou was in no mood to entertain the system rewards he earned from punishing Si Wuya. He felt his emotions stirring. It was something very close to rage. After striking a few times, he finally stopped. He suddenly wondered, did Ji Tiandao's memories affect him? Or did he successfully assimilate with Ji Tiandao? Lu Zhou was still Lu Zhou, but Ji Tiandao was no longer the Ji Tiandao of old. Lu Zhou had no choice. He was already in this position. He had to establish a new path for himself. After a moment, Lu Zhou walked to the edge of the steps with his hands on his back. He looked down at Si Wuya from above. "You're an unfilial rascal." Si Wuya grunted and spat out a mouthful of blood. He did not defend himself and he did not speak. He only supported himself and adjusted his posture. Kneeling on the ground, Lu Zhou was his master no matter what. Even if one had justified reasons, it was still not acceptable to curse at one's master. Si Wuya remained silent. He was not angry, and it seemed like he was already used to this. He was not surprised at all. In fact, he felt his master's punishment had been light compared to before. However, his master's words were more succinct now. As he kneeled on the ground, he recalled Min Shi Yin and Zhu Honggung's words about their master's change. The more he thought about it, the more perplexed he became. In any case, it was no longer important at this moment. Perhaps, the commotion was too loud. Duan Musheng, Ming Shi Yin, Zhao Yue, Little Yuaner, Hua Yuxing, and the others rushed over to the eastern pavilion. There were also many female cultivators who came since they were curious about Si Wuya. They stood in the distance to watch. Before anyone spoke, Lu Zhou's voice rang in everyone's ears. Anyone who dares to plead for him shall receive the same punishment. He would allow anyone to interfere with him disciplining a stubborn disciple. Ming Shi Yin saw the broken door and said with a smile, "Master, I will never plead for him. In fact, I think he should be heavily punished." Quote. The others were not bold enough to say anything. "You talk a lot." Lu Zhou walked down the stairs. Ming Shi Yin shut his mouth immediately. It was getting dark. Shadows were creeping up on the eastern pavilion. Si Wuya was not embarrassed by the crowd. His back remained straight as he kneeled on the ground. He looked at his master who was walking down the stairs, and he saw an old man whose great limit was upon him. Lu Zhou stood before Si Wuya with his hands on his back. For a fleeting moment, Si Wuya felt as though he had been transported back in time. Back then, he was still young and was told to kneel as a punishment for a mistake he made. Many years had passed since then, and yet, here he was, back in the same position and reenacting the same moment. "You've plotted extensively to bring chaos into the world. What are you after?" Lu Zhou's voice was much calmer now. Since the day Si Wuya left the evil sky pavilion, everything he knew about his master was from second-hand reports. Moreover, the Darknet's hands did not reach into the evil sky pavilion. Regardless, he was convinced his master was completely different from how he was in the past. In the end, he replied, "Eldest senior brother wants to rule the world, so I helped him." Just because of Yu Zhenghai. Lu Zhou regarded Si Wuya skeptically. His tone seemed to turn sharper when he mentioned Yu Zhenghai. Si Wuya said, "Revenge can only be obtained when eldest senior brother rules the world. Only by crushing the divine capital can we." He stopped abruptly. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, "Did Yu Zhenghai leave the evil sky pavilion purely for the sake of revenge?" "Yes. Do you think I'm gullible?" Lu Zhou's tone was deceptively calm at this moment. Si Wuya felt an unbearable pressure pressing down on him at this moment. If it was just for revenge, why did he need to crush the divine capital? With the Nether sect's current strength, it was not impossible to flatten Lu Lan when their members were mobilized in the hundreds of thousands. Lu Lan was a nation ruled by witchcraft. It was still behind Great Yan's cultivators if they went to war. "I dare not. I have told no lies," Si Wuya replied. Lu Zhou stared at Si Wuya. He had helped Si Wuya during the battle in Liang province, merely only made Si Wuya acquiesce to returning to the evil sky pavilion. It did not raise nor change Si Wuya's loyalty. Name: Si Wuya. Identity: Great Yan human. Realm: Nascent divinity tribulation realm. Si Wuya was the rascal whom Lu Zhou had nurtured. Each disciple was more stubborn and obstinate than the last. "Yu Shangrong won't tell me. And you won't tell me either. Yu Shangrong has never gotten along with Yu Zhenghai. Who do you think is right or wrong?" Lu Zhou asked. "None of them are right," Si Wuya answered. "Eldest senior brother is too extreme in his methods. He won't stop at anything to achieve his goals. Second senior brother is too sentimental, and he disregards the iron rules of the evil sky pavilion. Although they cannot see eye to eye, they do share one thing in common. They won't treat anyone who insults the evil sky pavilion with any mercy." Lu Zhou frowned slightly. Ming Shi Yin. "Yes, master. Strike his mouth for me." "Ah." Ming Shi Yin was slightly taken aback. He hesitated. He did not know why asked him to strike Si Wuya's mouth. His master's abrupt change in mood was too quick. The other disciples were puzzled as well. Si Wuya said, "I'll strike it myself." A loud and crisp sound rang in the air when he slapped himself. "Do you feel wronged?" Lu Zhou asked. "I dare not. Those who insulted the evil sky pavilion weren't given any mercy." Lu Zhou shook his head and spoke indifferently. "The elites of the 10 great sects had attacked me twice. Where were you lot when that happened?" Si Wuya was at a loss for words. Lu Zhou's voice grew deeper. "You can't have a single restful night so long as I'm around. Can you?" "I dare not." Si Wuya immediately kowtowed and said in a clear voice. The attack of the 10 elites was impromptu. After that incident, eldest senior brother attacked the sects involved. when senior sister Zhao Yue was taken hostage at Runan City's holy altar. Second senior brother was the one who went and killed so many elites. Since you're unwaveringly loyal to the evil Sky Pavilion, tell me the truth about the crystal and the divine capital, Lu Zhou said. Si Wuye fell silent. Lu Zhou had expected Si Wuye to remain tight-lipped. He said, "One cannot succeed alone. I'm the one who cannot rest peacefully at night for having a rascal like you as a disciple." At this moment, Ming Shi Yin walked over. He could not take this anymore. "Old Seventh, what's gotten into you?" Duan Musheng said. "Old Seventh, at this point, what difference does it make if you say it or not? You talk about treating master with filial piety. But is this the attitude a disciple should have?" The others stayed silent. "I don't know what second senior brother said, but I believe in my own judgment. If my judgment proves to be wrong in the future, I'm willing to apologize with my life." Ming Shi Yin rolled his eyes. He walked up to Si Wuye and said, "Old Seventh, look into my eyes. Are you bold enough to guarantee that all your judgments aren't wrong? Think carefully before answering me." Si Wuye was taken aback. Even the greatest sage in the world would not dare to claim that all of his judgments would not be wrong. He understood this even if he was confident about his judgments. Suddenly, he recalled the scene on the Lotus Dais and the scene above the obedient villa. During those two instants, he had felt that perhaps his judgments were wrong from the get-go. He calmed himself down before he asked a question that Yu Shangrong had asked before. "Master, have you found a way to attain the nine-leaf stage?" Upon hearing this, everyone turned to look at Lu Zhou, waiting for his answer. The answer was too important. It would affect the path of the entire cultivation world. Among everyone present, Ming Shi Yin was the only one who had heard the members of the Old Age Pavilion discussing this topic. Hence, he was calmer than the others. The entire Eastern Pavilion was as silent as a graveyard. Lu Zhou's expression remained unchanged. He stroked his beard with one hand while he placed the other hand on his back. "Indeed, I have found a way to attain the nine-leaf stage," Lu Zhou replied. His words were like a pebble that gave rise to 1,000 waves. Everyone, except for Ming Shi Yin, had an expression of awe on their faces. Si Wuye, who initially looked exhausted, suddenly seemed like he had been given a shot of adrenaline. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Lu Zhou. His hands twitched uncontrollably. How was this possible? Ming Shi Yin waved his arm and said, "Even if you're told the way to attain the nine-leaf stage, would you dare do it? You'll need to sever your golden lotus. Are you brave enough to do it?" "Sever the golden lotus?" the others exclaimed in surprise. This method was, naturally, just a conjecture for now. Lu Zhou would prefer it if someone else had tried it before he did. After all, he had many reversal cards at his disposal. He could still maintain his lifespan even without attaining the nine-leaf stage. He hoped his disciples would be able to attain the nine-leaf stage. But he knew cutting off one's golden lotus was akin to suicide. Nobody would dare to attempt unless they were extremely brave. Moreover, there was no guarantee that it would work. As a transmigrator, he knew that to prove his theory right, he would need lab rats to test it out. The problem was who would be bold enough and willing to take on the role of a lab rat. Ming Shi Yin bowed. He looked at Si Wuye and softly asked, "Seventh junior brother, do you dare?" Si Wuye remained silent. He narrowed his eyes and frowned. He suddenly recalled hearing about someone studying ways to attain the nine-leaf stage during his stint in the palace. If it was true, did this not mean the divine capital had an ace up its sleeve? Duan Musheng asked, "Cutting off one's golden lotus? What kind of method is that?" "How would I know? Ask master," Ming Shi Yin said as he rolled his eyes. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, "Severing the golden lotus is one way of attaining the nine-leaf stage. However, there's a possibility you might lose your life in the process. Therefore, do not attempt it lightly." The others nodded. Lu Zhou looked at Si Wuye and asked, "Are you satisfied with my answer?" Upon hearing this, Si Wuye shuddered. He kneeled and said, "I dare not. It's the duty of a teacher to address his students' questions. I will answer any question you have," Lu Zhou said. The others felt Lu Zhou was a magnanimous person when they heard his words. This was how a true master should act. On the contrary, Si Wuye felt Lu Zhou's words were mocking him. He could not help but shudder in fear. His master was still his master. But was he still the same disciple as before? Lu Zhou spoke again. By the way, how long do you think I have left to live? Well, Si Wuya trailed off. He was, naturally, afraid to speak his mind. Although he and almost everyone thought Lu Zhou's great limit was fast approaching, he did not dare to verbalize his thoughts in front of Lu Zhou. Without waiting for Si Wuya to respond, Lu Zhou looked at everyone present and loudly asked, "How long do all of you think I have left to live?" The main hall was as silent as a graveyard at this moment. Lu Zhou had been wanting to ask them this question for a long time now. He found it amusing. Did humans become stupid, or were they so used to living with these shackles that they did not dare to break them? Everyone continued to stay silent. As expected, Lu Zhou knew they would not dare to answer his question. He waved his sleeve and said, "Lock him up in the cave of reflection. Seal his cultivation base, and give him 50 beatings with the plank." Understood. Ding. Punish Si Wuya. Reward, 600 merit points. Zhu Honggong walked up to Si Wuya in his own volition. After all, he was on friendly terms with Si Wuya. It was most appropriate for him to escort Si Wuya. The others looked at Si Wuya and shook their heads. They did not understand why Si Wuya would remain so stubborn and persist in opposing Lu Zhou. Why would he subject himself to such a treatment? Si Wuya stood up and followed Zhu Honggong. He took 2 steps before he suddenly came to halt. Without turning back, he said, 3 days ago, the Darknet has received word that the 10 great sects have formed an alliance called the Fiend Extermination Alliance. Rumors are rife about second senior brother being killed. Now, the Noble Path is planning on fighting back. As soon as he finished speaking, he left with Zhu Honggong. Ming Shiyin frowned. Little Yuan pouted and said, "Master, that group of people is too despicable. We must teach them a lesson." "How do you plan on teaching them a lesson?" Little Yuan scratched her head. She waved her small fist and said, "Capture them and clobber them." Naturally, Lu Zhou did not agree to her suggestion. He noted that Little Yuan killing intent was no longer as strong as before. After a while, he waved his hand and said, "Let's call it a day. Rest well, Master. I'll take my leave, Master." Ming Shiyin, stay, Lu Zhou said. The others left the eastern pavilion. Ming Shiyin glanced at the shattered wooden door on the floor and said respectfully, "I'll fix that." Lu Zhou nodded and said, "I'm giving you 2 missions." Ming Shiyin was overjoyed when he heard that he would be entrusted with 2 missions. "Just say the word, Master. I'll do everything in my power to complete the missions. I'll complete it even if I have to swim across a sea of flames or climb a mountain of blades." For the first mission, spread the word about severing the golden lotus being the way to attain the 9-leaf stage. Lu Zhou said, "Ha." Ming Shiyin started. They had gone to so much trouble, traveling to the Yun sect and learning about the way to attain the 9-leaf stage through the 3 sects' patriarch's chessboard. Why would they easily reveal this to the masses? He could not understand this at all. Lu Zhou said, "Severing the golden lotus is akin to suicide. Nobody has ever tried it. At the very least, severing the golden lotus is equivalent to cultivating all over again. Everything aside, if we can gather information from people who attempt this, we'll have vast knowledge." This was very progressive thinking. Cultivators from the cultivation world in the past would guard their cultivation methods and theories closely as though they were some peerless treasure. For example, Yun Tianlo would never easily give up his chessboard even if it cost him his life. Due to this behavior, the progress of the cultivation world was greatly limited. Sharing information and knowledge was much more efficient and mutually beneficial rather than building a cart alone in the dark. However, Lu Zhou also knew that even if he would obtain countless information, the price of laying that foundation would be piles upon piles of bones. "I understand," Ming Shiyin said. "The second mission is to investigate the alliance between the 10 great sects. Keep me updated on this." Lu Zhou said, "Yes, Master." Meanwhile, in the Evergreen Palace in the Divine Capital, an attendant walked into the study reverently before kneeling on the floor. He held a name list with 2 hands above his head as he said, "Your Majesty, this is the list of nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivators who died this month." Lu Gu placed his brush on the table and said, "I won't read it. Read it out for me." At once, the attendant lowered the list and read, There are 5 nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivators at the 3-leaf stage and below who sprouted leaves by binding the golden lotuses with mantras. They couldn't absorb any energy and eventually died when their dantians exploded. There are 3 5-leaf nascent divinity realm cultivators who used the forced golden lotus modification method and died. There was a 900-years-old 6-leaf cultivator who consumed a longevity pill and forcibly tried to sprout a leaf but failed. After he finished reading, he remained prostrate on the ground. Lu Gu nodded and said, "Bury them ceremoniously. Every one of their families will be compensated with 10.000 catties of gold and 1.000 acres of fertile land." "Your Majesty, what if they refuse?" the attendant asked after mustering up his courage. Cultivators who had entered the nascent divinity tribulation realm, and likely their families, rarely cared about material things. "That's the most I can offer as compensation. I'll leave the rest to you." "Understood." The attendant left the study as reverently as when he came. The study was once again quiet. Lu Gu returned to his table. He picked up his brush and moved it across the canvas forcefully. The brush eventually broke the paper. He threw the brush on the table with a loud thud. 2 eunuchs who were startled by the noise hurried to the table. Lu Gu said indifferently, "Clean this up. At once." Half a day later, Lu Gu was going through the memorials when the attendant hurried into his study with an emergency report in his hand. His forehead was wet with sweat as he held the report with 2 hands above his head as he said, "Your Majesty, a report from Liang Province." "Read it." Lu Gu did not bother with personally reading it. The attendant unfolded the report and read, "The 10 cities of Liang Province have fallen. They've been conquered by the Nether sect. General Xiang Lai has fallen in battle. His Highness, the 4th Prince, and the 6 generals have perished." Lu Gu frowned when he heard the report. He did not even frown when Lu Huan, the 2nd Prince, died. The attendant waited on the emperor every day so he was familiar with Lu Gu's temper. The quieter Lu Gu was, the more uncomfortable and anxious he became. The air in the study felt as though it was laced with poison. He felt if he inhaled too deeply, he would definitely die. The study was so quiet now that he could hear his own heartbeat. After a moment of silence, Lu Gu finally said, "I see." The attendant was relieved. A reply was better than none. He mustered his courage and said again, "Your Majesty, I have another matter to report." "What is it?" "There's a rumor going around that the cultivation world has found a way to attain the 9-leaf stage," said the attendant. Lu Gu, who was slightly troubled by the earlier report, turned around immediately. His eyes were wide as he asked, "What method is it?" "Apparently, if a cultivator cut off his golden lotus and manages to survive, he can sprout leaves again and attain the 9-leaf stage," the attendant replied. If Lu Gu had heard this report in the past or someone had told him about severing one's golden lotus to attain the 9-leaf stage, the person who had spoken about it would have been beheaded without a doubt. However, at this moment, he believed this rumor. After Emperor Yongshou passed away, Lu Gu had ascended the throne. He had neglected to govern the empire and focused on attaining the 9-leaf stage. He had utilized the empire's resources and spent centuries on research before he finally discovered the golden lotus was what was preventing cultivators from attaining the 9-leaf stage. He had tried various methods, binding the golden lotus with mantras and modifying the golden lotus. For example, he had even once thought about cutting off the golden lotus, but he quickly dismissed the idea. And yet, currently, such a rumor was spreading in the cultivation world now. There would be no waves without the wind. There must be a reason for this. Who spread the rumor? Lu Gu asked. It started from a relay station in the divine capital. This information spread throughout the entire divine capital in half a day. However, many people don't believe it. Your Majesty thinks about this topic day and night. I dare not delay in bringing this news to you. Kindly give your informed decision on this matter. Your Majesty, the attendant said. Has anyone attempted it? Lu Gu asked. The attendant shook his head. Lu Gu fell deep into his thoughts. The attendant did not dare to move, nor did he dare to rashly speak. The method of severing one's golden lotus was akin to committing suicide with a blade. It was normal for people to be apprehensive. Lu Gu had spent many years researching this. He had lost count of the number of nascent divinity tribulation realm elites who had died during the research. On the bookshelf behind him, there was a space dedicated to the lists of names of people who had died for the sake of his cause. Since the heavens had limited humans' cultivation bases to the nascent divinity tribulation realm, it was only natural for there to be more and more nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivators as time passed by. Even so, not everyone could attain the 8-leaf stage, let alone the 9-leaf stage. After pondering over it for a moment, Lu Gu finally said, "This is my decree. Gather 100 men who are willing to sever the golden lotuses." At once, it was not difficult to find these men. Great Yan had no shortages of citizens. Those at the 1-leaf stage could participate as well. It did not necessarily have to be 8-leaf experts. Ordinary cultivators might be willing to sever the golden lotuses. However, there were many who were on the brink of death, such as old men whose great limit was fast approaching, cultivators who were heavily injured or were terminally ill, or those who had nothing left to love for. Rather than dying without a cause, these people would naturally think it was better to sever the golden lotuses and try to attain the 9-leaf stage. As long as the reward was huge enough, there would be no lack of brave men. After the attendant left, Lu Gu raised one hand. A miniature 100 Tribulations Insight avatar appeared above his palm. It was standing on an 8-leaf golden lotus, and it shone with a golden light. The 8 leaves were full and plump. The radiance of the golden lotus was dazzling. Lu Gu's eyes flashed. If severing the golden lotus worked, it meant he would have to give up on his 8-leaf cultivation base and start over. He wondered if he would be able to do it. The divine capital was the core of Great Yan. The cultivators under the heavens gathered in the divine capital, and some were scattered across Great Yan's 9 provinces. The rumors of severing one's golden lotus to attain the 9-leaf stage spread like a wildfire and caused a huge commotion. Both the noble and fiend paths had been racing to study the way to attain the 9-leaf stage. Shortly after the rumor had spread, people had been divided into 3 factions: the Lie faction, the Radical faction, and the Trial faction. This rumor had also reached the Nether sect's branches as well. Hua Chongyang, Bai Yuqing, Yang Yan, and Dai King stood in a row with their heads lowered. Yu Zhenghai was pacing with his hands on his back. "Please punish us, Sect Master. We weren't able to stop Mr. 7th. Hua Chongyang was the first to fall to one knee. "Please punish us, Sect Master." The others followed suit and dropped to one knee as well. The Nether sect had won in the Battle of Liang Province. Their victory was beautiful and brilliant. All 10 cities of Liang Province were now under the Nether sect's control. However, Yu Zhenghai was not happy at all. A somber expression could be seen on his face, and he would frown intermittently. He looked at his 4 subordinates who were kneeling and could not bring himself to punish them. In the end, he punched the wall next to him to vent his frustration. Boom! Yu Zhenghai did not use any primal chi. Relying on his fist and strength alone, he made the wall crumble. His expression was dark as he muttered, "Without 7th junior brother, how am I supposed to unify the lands? Am I supposed to believe the rumor about severing one's golden lotus like all the fools out there?" The 4 great protectors remained kneeling on the ground. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. After a moment of silence, Hua Chongyang said, "Mr. 7th insisted on returning to the Evil Sky Pavilion. We couldn't stop him. Moreover, the old senior's cultivation base is terrifyingly profound. Even an elite such as Xiang Lai could not survive a single strike from the old senior. All of you, rise." Yu Zhenghai turned around. The 4 of them rose to their feet. Yu Zhenghai said with a sigh, "Since he's insisted on returning, I'll respect his decision. What could he do anyway? Could he rush to the Evil Sky Pavilion to bring Si Wuya back?" "Sect Master, what's our next move?" Hua Chongyang asked. 7th junior brother drafted a plan to isolate the divine capital before he left for Liang Province. He has come up with different simulations of possible outcomes. Regardless of which of his plans we use, as long as we follow one of his plans, the sect will conquer the divine capital, sooner or later, Yu Zhenghai said. Upon hearing this, Hua Chongyang sighed before he said, "Mr. 7th was a huge asset to the sect. What a shame." The other 3 shook their heads as well. Aku. Perhaps it was due to the cold wind blowing in the cave of reflection. Si Wuya, whose cultivation base had been sealed, sneezed. Zhu Honggong prepared a set of clothes for Si Wuya. He massaged Si Wuya's shoulders as he asked with a chuckle, "Seventh senior brother, why won't you reveal the location of the crystal?" Si Wuya glanced at Zhu Honggong and asked, "Did master send you to gather information from me?" "Seventh senior brother, with my brains, what kind of information do you think I can glean from you?" If master wanted to send someone, he would have sent fourth senior brother. Zhu Honggong replied. Si Wuya shook his head and said, "You're just recently returned to the Evil Sky Pavilion. But I see that your bootlicking skills have improved. I don't agree with your words. Seventh senior brother, how can you equate bootlicking to honesty? This is a great insult to me." Zhu Honggong said. Si Wuya, naturally, did not believe Zhu Honggong. How could Zhu Honggong fool him? "That's enough. To be honest, the only thing I know is that the crystal has found its way to Ronshi. It's not in Great Yan.